The Queen of Sheba is a legendary figure whose story is told across various cultures, most notably in the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions. Her tale is steeped in mystery, intrigue, and grandeur, and she is often depicted as a powerful, wealthy, and wise monarch. The Queen of Sheba's origins are as mysterious as the tales of her wisdom and wealth. She is commonly associated with the ancient kingdom of Saba, located in present-day Yemen. The Sabaean Kingdom was a wealthy and powerful civilization that thrived from around the 8th century BCE until the 6th century CE, known for its control over the lucrative incense trade routes. The Sabaeans worshipped a pantheon of gods, with the moon god Almaqah being particularly prominent. The precise identity of the Queen of Sheba varies across sources. In the Hebrew Bible, she is referred to simply as the Queen of Sheba, without a personal name. In Islamic tradition, she is known as Bilqis, while Ethiopian tradition names her Makeda. These variations reflect the broad cultural impact of her story, as well as the ways in which different societies have made her tale their own. The earliest and most influential account of the Queen of Sheba appears in the Hebrew Bible, specifically in the books of Kings, 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 1 through 13, and Chronicles, which is 2 Chronicles chapter 9, verses 1 through 12. According to these texts, the Queen of Sheba heard of King Solomon's great wisdom and his relationship with the Lord, and decided to visit him to test his knowledge with hard questions. The Queen's journey to Jerusalem is portrayed as a grand and opulent expedition. She traveled with a large caravan, including camels bearing spices, large quantities of gold, and precious stones. This aspect of the narrative underscores her wealth and the significance of her visit. The journey itself would have been long, covering vast distances across desert terrain, further highlighting her determination and the importance she placed on meeting Solomon. Upon her arrival, the Queen of Sheba engaged Solomon with a series of challenging questions and riddles. The nature of these questions is not detailed in the biblical account, but Solomon's successful answers impressed her greatly. She marveled at his wisdom, the splendor of his palace, the abundance of his table, the organization of his officials, and the burnt offerings he made at the temple of the Lord. The queen's reaction is one of awe and admiration, acknowledging that Solomon's wisdom and prosperity exceeded the reports she had heard in her own country. In response to Solomon's wisdom and hospitality, the Queen of Sheba presented him with 120 talents of gold, which is approximately 4 metric tons, a great quantity of spices and precious stones. Solomon, in turn, gave her all that she desired and asked for, in addition to what he had already given her from his royal bounty. This exchange of gifts highlights the diplomatic and economic aspects of their encounter, emphasizing the mutual respect and recognition between two powerful rulers. After her visit, the Queen of Sheba returned back to her own country, leaving a lasting impression on the court of Solomon and on the biblical narrative. Her story is often cited as an example of the far-reaching fame of Solomon's wisdom and the extent of his influence. The Queen's visit symbolizes the recognition of Solomon's divinely endowed wisdom by a foreign monarch, reinforcing the themes of divine favor and international prestige. In Islamic tradition, the story of the Queen of Sheba is detailed in the Quran, with additional elaborations found in various hadiths and Islamic literature. The Quranic account introduces new elements and provides a more detailed characterization of the queen, known as Bilqis. The story begins with the hoopoe bird, which serves as a scout for King Solomon. The hoopoe informs Solomon of a kingdom led by a woman who worships the sun instead of Allah. This report prompts Solomon to send a letter to Bilqis, inviting her to submit to Allah and visit his court. Bilqis receives Solomon's letter with caution and seeks counsel from her advisors. She decides to send a delegation with valuable gifts to Solomon as a gesture of goodwill, hoping to discern his intentions. Solomon, however, rejects the gifts, demonstrating that his power and wealth are far greater. This act of refusal underscores Solomon's spiritual and temporal superiority. Intrigued and recognizing Solomon's divine authority, Bilqis decides to visit him. Before her arrival, Solomon orders the construction of a palace with a floor made of glass. When Bilqis enters the palace, she mistakes the glass floor for water and lifts her dress to avoid getting wet, revealing her legs. This incident is often interpreted as a moment of humility and realization for Bilqis, leading to her acceptance of Solomon's message and conversion to monotheism. The Quranic account concludes with Bilqis's acknowledgement of Solomon's prophethood and her submission to Allah. Some Islamic traditions suggest that she married Solomon, while others simply emphasize the alliance and mutual respect established between their two kingdoms. The story of Bilqis in Islamic tradition highlights themes of wisdom, humility, and the triumph of monotheism over idolatry. The Ethiopian tradition offers a rich and distinct version of the Queen of Sheba's story, found in the Kebra Nagast, or the Glory of the Kings, which is a 14th century text that traces the lineage of Ethiopian emperors to King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, known as Makeda. According to the Kebra Nagast, Makeda learns about Solomon's wisdom from a merchant named Tamrin. Inspired by the reports, she embarks on a journey to Jerusalem, bringing with her an abundance of gifts. Her journey, much like in the biblical account, underscores her wealth and determination. In Jerusalem, Makeda is impressed by Solomon's wisdom and the splendor of his court. Solomon, in turn, is struck by her beauty and intelligence. The Kebra Nagast elaborates on their interactions, detailing a feast where Solomon uses a ruse to seduce Makeda. He invites her to dine with him and swears not to take anything from her. However, he also makes her promise not to take anything from him. During the night, Makeda becomes thirsty and drinks water provided by Solomon, thus breaking her promise. Solomon then claims her, and they spend the night together. Upon returning to her kingdom, Makeda gives birth to a son, Menelik, who later travels to Jerusalem to meet his father. Solomon welcomes Menelik with great honor and offers him the throne of Israel, which Menelik declines. Instead, Menelik takes the Ark of the Covenant with him back to Ethiopia, establishing a divine connection between the Solomonic dynasty and the biblical tradition. This narrative cements the legitimacy of the Ethiopian monarchy and its claim to a sacred heritage. While the tales of the Queen of Sheba are rich in literary and religious significance, historical and archaeological evidence for her existence and the precise nature of her kingdom remains elusive. The kingdom of Saba is well documented in historical and archaeological records as a major South Arabian civilization. The Sabaeans were known for their impressive achievements in engineering, agriculture, and trade. They constructed extensive irrigation systems, including the famous Marib Dam, which supported their prosperous agricultural economy. The Sabaean capital, Marib, was a key center in the incense trade, connecting the Arabian Peninsula with the Mediterranean, Africa, and India. The Queen of Sheba's story has left a lasting impact on various cultures and traditions, inspiring a wide range of literary, artistic, and religious works. The death of the Queen of Sheba is not well documented in historical or religious text. Her story ends on a note of return and legacy, with different traditions focusing on her wisdom, wealth, and impact rather than the details of her demise. She remains a mysterious and powerful figure whose life story has been woven into the fabric of different cultures and religions.